Welcome to the Gizmo Effect. The Gizmo Effect is going to cover new technologies and how it will potentially affect our everyday lives. We're going to dig down deep and work hard at finding out what are the potential pitfalls of these new technologies and how it could potentially improve our lives and the world as a whole. So, get your thinking cap on and let the Gizmo Effect take you on a journey starting now. Welcome to the Gizmo Effect. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the disconnect of today's mainstream media, and they're not understanding that the alternative media is kind of getting a foothold, and people are checking other sources other than, CNN, Fox, all that stuff to get I would say, get more information than what's being, communicated, or their messages that they want to get out as opposed to actual true reporting. And this one instance that we're going to cover is just a 5-minute interview that was taken up from, it was Bloomberg that actually had this interview with Jennifer Greigile, Syracuse University Associate Professor of Communications. And it goes to to the point where it's so absurd that they have no idea how people have checked out from watching these mainstream channels, even Bloomberg. So let's kind of listen to the initial, and I'll stop in between and kind of give you cover some of the absurdities that are covered in this interview. So let's go. Here we go.
Of ultimately the amount of people viewing this in an unedited form. How is the media landscape changing?
Yeah, and again, I think you put it well. It's like airing different types of content. And I just saw your last clip too. The head of partnerships at X has been going on a listening tour. Well, I guess I was going on a listening tour last night too. Like, for one, I had kind of a hard time finding the interview on X, Twitter. I'm not sure it was really a story about that platform, though I do, think that there is value in, kind of discussing that Musk made a commitment to at least platforming this video. But I also found it on YouTube as well. So I don't know. I think there's some other forces going on here too, because
some other forces. It goes back to this whole thing that I'm trying to cover here, is that here you have a professor that is supposed to be clued in on things, and she right away says that she can't find the Tucker Carlson video with Putin. Now, all you have to do is go on X, and this is simple stuff that most people know how to actually do, for the most part, and go to Tucker Carlson's his page on X, and the interview's there. I don't understand the ineptitude of someone that's an actual professor that doesn't know how to find or where to find things on platforms that obviously is probably has used before, but forgotten how to use. I don't know. But here we go. Let's continue.
Definitely was like unusual content, right? Like, this is not something you normatively see here in American discourse. So,
okay, now here we go. She's talking about not your usual. Well, not your usual maybe, but most people now know how to go find and are watching long-form video on Rumble, on X, and multiple other social media platforms.
I think there's a lot of factors. I think it speaks to the nature of the internet. It's a complicated space, though it has these norms, right?
Okay, now, what's so complicated about clicking on two actual 2 links. Actually, click on, go to Tucker Carlson, and then just click on the video.
But something different kind of pierced through over here, and it may also involve older technology too, like the .coms, the websites.
Right.
Tucker Carlson's website seemed to play an important role in that. So, and we don't really have any insight into really how many people viewed this, because there aren't analytics on things like older platforms like that.
Okay, she's calling a website an older platform. What the world? And then if you do go to X, and if you know how to view on X, actually shows you, as of today, it is over. Now, mind you, we don't know how long a person's actually sat and watched the 2-hour actual video of Tucker interviewing Putin. But there's 200 million views. It's also been shared 308,000 times. And there's actually 77,000 people that have actually even commented. What do you mean that there's no indication of how many people have viewed it? This is, again, what I'm talking about with these people and them trying to propagate some other type of story that this is the Wild Wild West, and it's not. And let's just continue. Let's listen to more of the absurdities.
A website.
And to that end, I think you were referencing in the break that you can see how many people have viewed a pinned post, but ultimately, how do we know how many minutes of that has ultimately been consumed, and we therefore are left to perhaps, ingesting memes and smaller parts of it? How does that make us yet more siloed rather than looking more broadly?
Yeah, well, I would say the norms, at least in the West, and the discourse coming from the East, is we're getting it through memes. We're getting it through news stories in our press. The difference here was that it was, as you were saying, it was just kind of uninterrupted. It was unfettered information coming through in a 2-hour block. So for me, again, that was what felt like something that was different, and maybe.
How's that different? Rumble and many other social media platforms have long-form video that people watch. We're talking hour and a half type long-form video. Where are these people? Are they here at 2024, or are they in the year 2019? I don't know. But this is part of the thing that I'm pointing out here with people like this and the general normal run-of-the-mill media that don't do any reporting and try to propagate stories like this. It's just crazy. So let's continue and listen to this funny, absurd interview. But one other thing, you have to remember, even at the long-form video formats on Rumble, which can be viewed on computer, on your phone, on the TV, and many different ways of viewing this. Even X and all that stuff can be viewed in many different ways. Again, it's this clueless perception that they try to put the wool over people's eyes in regards to what really is going on. And she sounds like that 2 hours is god-awful long. Well, okay, 2 hours was long for listening to Putin. I mean, let's just be honest. I watched the whole thing. So, but that's neither here and there for this episode. But let's continue.
Discussing a bit, the discourse had changed. So, we'll see what the market thinks of this.
For me, it's worth discussing both the science and the art behind video content on social media platforms, right? So that was a pretty long interview. And, we on this show, Caroline and I, we post clips of interesting conversations on X, on Reels, and on YouTube. Sometimes we might do a longer form on YouTube. But as I understand it, the basic science is that the attention span of the viewer is limited to that much shorter bite, or they seek out something very long. What did you learn about duration video on the X platform from what happened last night?
Well, I think some people were bored and tuned out, kind of with the history in the beginning. 2 hours is a long clip. But just the fact that a 2-hour clip was available and that there may have been an attention audience behind it, given, what Carlson brings to this. So for me, it was really understanding how this was, I'm trying to make sense of it, honestly, but it's almost.
What's there to make sense of it? It's an interview. Are they afraid to allow people to actually ingest and learn and hear other points of view? Is that what the problem is here? Because, look at what they've been trying to do Rumble. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of podcasters that use Rumble as one of their platforms, and some of them have over 150,000 people that watch at 11 a.m. an actual interview. Let's continue.
Almost like a new media formula that's rooted in the internet. So it was Musk provided a platform which acts a little bit like the broadcast.
She acts like Musk was the god that had given the rights to Tucker Carlson. Well, no, he also is on Rumble too, and you can watch it on Rumble and other platforms, as she found out, as YouTube too.
Gets it, out to people, and then Carlson had the access, but also his own audience. He delivered attention to this topic, and also access to a source.
Yes.
And Putin was the source, right? So, but really, for me, what was interesting was that, at least in the United States, you don't really have access, freedom of information to stuff like that. 2 hours.
And so what's the problem with that? You listen to her voice, listen to her attitude towards it, well, we shouldn't have this. It's crazy. Where's this mental process coming from? Why are these people trying to not allow for people to have options? And I'm not saying that the interview was great, and there were some things that kind of already were out there about certain events that have been happening. And, one of the things Tucker was trying to get the one reporter released, which was quite interesting. But it's this whole premise that they try to prevail that this is not anything that anybody wants to hear or watch or listen or intake the information. Let's continue.
Of Putin. So again, call it what you want, propaganda. It's obviously meant to influence, but we don't usually have that type of access into information coming directly to Americans. But I think it also went out to other people.
And don't you think that might possibly be a problem, that we don't have the information that we should really have, and that maybe the different stations and reporters should actually start reporting again, as opposed to regurgitating the bullshit lines that we get from our government? Come on.
In the world, too. I don't think it was just us as an audience. But I do think that, again, you're seeing discourse on Twitter, X today, people who feel kind of safe in giving their reaction to that interview. But I think a lot of people aren't having a conversation maybe about what was said, even having, discourse, with others publicly, especially. You won't see that kind of stuff on social media.
See, again, that's not true. There's many different social media platforms where the information's been shared, people are discussing, and people are kind of giving their perspective and views. Again, it's this narrow-minded thought process from this individual, and well, she's just not the only one. There's just multiple different people that are out there that the news agencies that just want to prevail a certain type of story that they want to send out, and not allow for people to actually think. Really. We'll continue. We're almost done.
At a coffee shop or on a kitchen table, but it feels like there's a silent audience, and I don't really, know how big it is, but I do think people listened last night.
I don't know how big it is. So here we go. We have a person that has no clue, or went back on X to look at how many people viewed it. 200 million people. Now that's around the world, probably, I would think. and it's this whole thing that I've been kind of talking about with free speech and all these other things that are becoming a real major problem in not being able to hear certain perspectives, view and intake the information, make up your own mind, and do with what you will with that information, and to kind of learn and grow. You may not agree with everything, but at least intake. I mean, it's one thing that I learned a long time ago is to kind of listen to all sides and intake the information, look at the views. There's some that's pretty far out there that just aren't taking the time to learn the actual facts, like the Green New Deal, all that stuff. It's if you learn the complexities of the different issues with EV technology and those types of things, that's a whole nother ball of wax that we're not going to cover right now. But it's just those types of things of education. Learn and seek out. I think that some people kind of tuned out and aren't learning, but then they pick up the torch on some of these different issues without really knowing what the backstory is or the information and those types of things, and don't take the time to get educated and or seek out the information, because there is a ton of information out there. That goes into our 4-part series and everything else with free speech. But I wanted to kind of cover this a little bit just to kind of really sink in here that this is an issue. This is something that she doesn't talk about the other platforms. She doesn't discuss anything in regards to actually how many views at the time, when she looked at who knows how many views were at that time. I didn't check. But yeah, just something I think that everyone needs to kind of take and start looking at the alternative type things. Rumble especially. Look at how they're on the stock exchange. I even invest in Rumble, and it is one of those things that's neither here and there. If you start looking at the content, is from all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of different perspectives around there. It's just like it used to be on YouTube where you had all those perspectives and people giving their thoughts. Now things are being managed, and you can't seek out different thoughts and perspectives and views or learn certain things because it doesn't fit the norm. And that's another good thing about X, is that you can definitely do that there and seek out and learn new things about different topics without having to be just without a filter, basically, because she was filtering. She didn't like the filter, the unfeathered access. Remember that in the interview. But anyway, so I digress. I hope this was kind of enlightening. You definitely can view that full video on our Gizmo Effect page on Facebook. Go there if you want to watch it. But I think that 5 minutes of listening to this bull in audio was probably enough. But anyway, next time we'll be talking about some other interesting things. And you have a good day. The music is by Hans Tom, All Along, and can be found on CC Mixter.